The coffee pot was cracked. Not badly, just a hairline fracture running from the handle to the base that Elena Vance had noticed 3 weeks ago and hadn't mentioned to anyone. The diner couldn't afford to replace it, and neither could she. So she carried it carefully, angling it just right so the dark liquid didn't seep through, and she poured cup after cup for the Tuesday morning regulars at Martindale's family diner like the crack didn't exist. Like a lot of things in her life. Elena was 34 years old, though lately she felt 60. The face staring back at her each morning showed the evidence. New lines around her eyes, a tightness in her jaw that never quite relaxed, and a permanent furrow between her brows that her daughter Mia had started imitating as a joke. "You're thinking too hard again, Mama." 10-year-old wisdom delivered with a giggle, but Mia didn't know what Elena was thinking about. Mia didn't know that the $2,147 they owed Gerald Drummond for back rent was now $347 with the late fees he'd tacked on. Mia didn't know that the certified letter sitting in Elena's purse right now, the one she'd signed for this morning before her shift, contained words like legal proceedings and immediate vacate notice and failure to remit. Mia thought they were fine. Mia thought the reason they ate spaghetti 3 times a week was because it was her favorite. Mia thought Mama worked double shifts because she loved serving pancakes to truckers. Elena topped off the coffee for Dale Hendricks at the counter and smiled at his usual terrible joke about his ex-wife, and she did not think about the letter in her purse. She did not think about the $847 in medical bills from Mia's emergency room visit in August, the broken arm from falling off the monkey bars that their joke of an insurance plan barely covered. She did not think about the 18 months since Ryan had left them for a woman he'd met on some app, or the child support checks that came sporadically, or the way her mother looked at her last Thanksgiving like she'd failed some fundamental test of womanhood. She thought about coffee, about table 6 needing more creamer, about the bell over the door. It chimed, and a man walked in. He was large. That was the first thing she noticed. Not fat, just big in the way of men who'd spent decades doing physical work. Broad shoulders, thick arms visible beneath the worn leather of his jacket, hands that looked like they could crush walnuts. His hair was gray and pulled back in a short ponytail, and his beard was trimmed close. Late 50s, she guessed, maybe early 60s. The jacket was the thing, though. Black leather, weathered soft, covered in patches. Martindale's sat just off Route 12, so they got bikers now and then, but usually in groups, usually loud, usually young men trying to prove something. This man was alone. He moved to a booth in the corner, the one with the torn vinyl that management kept meaning to fix, and he sat, with his back to the wall, facing the door. He didn't look at a menu, he looked at nothing in particular, just sat. Elena grabbed a menu and a glass of water and walked over. Up close, his eyes were surprising, a pale blue, almost gray, with a quietness in them that didn't match the biker's look. He had a scar on his jaw, thin and old. "Morning," she said, setting down the water. "Coffee." "Please." His voice was low, a little rough. "Black. Know what you want, or you need a minute?" 2 eggs over medium, rye toast, bacon, not too crisp. Easy enough. She wrote it down, though she didn't need to. "Coming right up." She'd turned back toward the kitchen when her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. Elena knew before she looked. She knew from the specific vibration pattern she'd assigned to that number, the one she'd programmed in 3 months ago after the calls started coming 2-3 times a day. She knew, and her stomach dropped, and she kept walking to the kitchen window and put in the order for the man in the corner booth. Her phone buzzed again. She pulled it out behind the counter, angling her body away from the customers. The screen showed a text from the number she'd labeled, "Do not answer." "Pick up the phone, Ms. Vance. Ignoring me makes this worse for you." Another buzz, a call now. The same number. Elena silenced it. Her hands were shaking. She poured coffee for the biker, the cracked pot, careful, steady, and carried it to his booth. He nodded thanks. She nodded back. Her phone buzzed again, and again, and again. At the counter, Dale Hendricks was watching her with curious concern. "You okay, honey? You look pale." "Fine," Elena said. "Just 1 second." She walked to the narrow hallway that led to the bathrooms and the back exit. She pressed her back against the wall next to the payphone that no one had used in years. She answered. "Ms. Vance." Gerald Drummond's voice was smooth in a way that made her skin crawl. He was a man who'd learned to be polite as a weapon. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten about me." "Mr. Drummond, I'm at work. I'm aware. Martindale's Diner, correct? Route 12? I have the address. Something cold moved through her. What? I want to make sure we understand each other, Ms. Vance. His voice stayed perfectly pleasant. You're 3 months behind now. 3 months. That's $9,000 with the late fees, and frankly, my patience is exhausted. It's $31.47. The words came out small. I have the notice. I know exactly what it is. Plus this month coming due next week, which you won't pay, which brings us to where we are. He paused. I've started the eviction filing. A sheriff's deputy will be at your door within 10 days to supervise your removal from the property. Your belongings will be placed on the curb, and your locks will be changed. Elena's vision blurred. She pressed her hand against the wall to steady herself. Please, Mr. Drummond, I'm trying. I've been trying to find a second job. My daughter, she broke her arm, the hospital bills, not my concern. If you could just give me another month, 2 weeks even. I get paid Friday. I can give you $500. His laugh was a bark, ugly and dismissive. You think $500 fixes this? You think I run a charity? I have a mortgage on that property, Ms. Vance. I have my own bills. Your problems are not my problems. Please. She hated the word as it left her mouth. Hated how small it sounded. Please. She's 10 years old. We don't have anywhere. Should have thought of that before you stopped paying your rent. I didn't stop. My husband left. My daughter was hurt. I've paid what I could. Every month I've given you something. Something isn't everything. Something isn't the number on your lease. You signed a contract, Ms. Vance. You're in breach. Another pause. 10 days. I suggest you start packing. He hung up. Elena stood in the hallway. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Someone had carved Mike plus Trish into the wall paneling sometime in the 80s, and someone else had crossed it out. The air smelled like industrial cleaner and old grease. She did not cry. She had rules about crying at work. She had rules about crying in front of Mia. The rules left a very narrow window, late at night, in the shower, with the water running so no one could hear, and this was not that window. She breathed, in through the nose, out through the mouth, like the free meditation app had taught her. She smoothed her apron. She touched her face to make sure it was neutral. She walked back out to the floor. The biker was watching her. She noticed that immediately, the way his pale eyes tracked her as she emerged from the hallway, the slight tilt of his head. He didn't look away when she caught him looking. Didn't pretend he hadn't seen. Elena's face went hot. She wondered how much he'd heard. The hallway wasn't far from his booth. She didn't have time to wonder long. The bell over the door rang again, and a man walked in, and she knew from the shape of him, from the smug set of his shoulders, exactly who it was. Gerald Drummond smiled at her from across the diner. Ms. Vance, he said, I thought we could finish this conversation in person. Gerald Drummond was 51 years old, and he owned 14 rental properties across 3 counties. He wore khaki pants and a polo shirt with a small logo on the breast, some yacht club he'd joined last year, and his hair was the color of dishwater, thinning, combed carefully to hide the bald spot. He wasn't a big man. Average height, average build, the slight softness around the middle that came with desk work and business dinners. But he carried himself like he was 7 feet tall, and when he walked toward Elena, every pair of eyes in the diner followed. Dale Hendricks at the counter, the young couple in booth 3, the elderly woman with her crossword puzzle near the window, and the biker in the corner, his coffee untouched, his face unreadable. I don't think this is appropriate, Elena said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I'm working. I can see that. Drummond stopped 3 feet in front of her, hands in his pockets, relaxed, easy, like they were friends catching up. I thought a face-to-face might help clarify the situation. Phone calls don't seem to be getting through to you. Mr. Drummond? You're 2 weeks away from being on the street, Ms. Vance. You and your daughter. Do you understand that? He said it conversationally, almost kindly, the way you might tell someone their tail light was out. 10 days, technically, but I imagine the sheriff's office is backed up. 2 weeks at most. Can we please talk about this somewhere else? Why? He looked around the diner, made a show of it. You embarrassed? You should be embarrassed. 3 months behind on rent, taking advantage of my good nature. I gave you extensions, Ms. Vance. I gave you time. And I paid you every month. Partial payments don't pay my mortgage. His voice sharpened. Partial payments don't count. You know what counts? The full amount on the first of the month, like it says on the lease you signed. Elena could feel the heat rising in her face, the eyes on her. Dale Hendricks had stopped pretending to drink his coffee. The young couple was whispering. Please, she said quietly. Not here. Not in front of... In front of what? Your customers? Maybe they should know who's serving their food. A deadbeat. A woman who can't manage her own life. He stepped closer. You think I'm the bad guy here? I'm a businessman. I provided you with a home. A home, Ms. Vance. A roof over your daughter's head. And you repaid me by stealing from me. I didn't steal anything. 3 months of housing you didn't pay for. What would you call it? I lost my husband. He left you. Different thing. Drummond's lip curled. And maybe I understand why. The words landed like a slap. Elena stepped back, bumping into the counter behind her. Hey now. It was Dale Hendricks, half rising from his stool, his weathered face tight with discomfort. That's a bit much, mister. She's just trying to work. This is between me and my tenant. Drummond didn't even look at him. Mind your business. She's not your tenant in here. She's my waitress, and she's always been good to me. Then maybe you should pay her rent. Dale's mouth opened, closed. He sat back down. Drummond turned back to Elena. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to find the money you owe me, all of it, every cent, or you're going to be out on the street. And if I find out you've damaged anything in that apartment, a single wall, a single fixture, I'll sue you for it. I'll garnish your wages from this charming establishment until you're old and gray. He leaned in close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and sharp. You think your life is hard now? Cross me. See what happens. Elena's vision was blurring. She blinked hard, refusing. Is there a problem here? The voice came from behind Drummond, low, rough, unhurried. The biker had left his booth. He stood a few feet away, hands loose at his sides, and even though Drummond had several inches of height on him, the biker somehow seemed larger. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't changed his expression. He simply stood there, solid as a wall, watching. Drummond turned. Excuse me? I asked if there's a problem. None of your concern. Seems like it might be. You're yelling at a woman who's trying to do her job. Rest of us are trying to eat. Then eat. Drummond's voice went cold. This is a private matter. Didn't sound private. Sounded like you were trying to humiliate someone in public. The biker's eyes moved to Elena, then back to Drummond. That how you usually do business? I don't know who you think you are. Just a customer. The biker shrugged. Customer who doesn't like watching a man bully a woman half his size. Makes me lose my appetite. Drummond's face flushed. He wasn't used to this. That much was obvious. He was used to people folding, people backing down, people too scared or too polite to push back. He straightened his shoulders and put on a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I appreciate your concern, but you don't know the situation. This woman owes me a significant amount of money. I'm simply trying to recover what's mine. By coming to her workplace? By threatening her in front of her customers? I've tried other methods. She doesn't answer her phone. Can't imagine why. Elena watched this exchange like it was happening to someone else. The biker hadn't looked at her again, but she could feel his awareness of her, like a warmth at the edge of her vision. Look, Drummond said, and his voice was getting tighter, losing its polish. I don't know what you think is happening here, but this woman is a deadbeat tenant who's been living in my property rent-free for 3 months. I have every right to... To what? Come into a public business and scream at her? Call her names? The biker took a single step forward. He didn't raise his hands, didn't clench his fists, just moved, and Drummond took a step back without seeming to realize he'd done it. You said your piece. She heard you. Now maybe you should go. I'll go when I'm ready. No. The word was quiet, final. You'll go now, because you've made your point, and now you're just enjoying watching her cry, and that's something I take personal. Drummond stared at him. The diner was silent. You don't know who you're dealing with, Drummond said finally. Neither do you. Something flickered across Drummond's face. Uncertainty, maybe, or the first cold touch of doubt. He looked at the biker's leather jacket, the patches, the scars on his knuckles, and whatever he calculated, it didn't come out in his favor. This isn't over, he said to Elena. You have 10 days. I'll see you in court. He walked out. The bell over the door rang, a cheerful sound that felt obscene. Elena's knees buckled. She grabbed the counter behind her and held on, breathing hard, vision swimming. She would not cry. She would not cry. She would not. Hey! The biker was beside her now, close but not touching. Hey, you want to sit down? I'm fine. The words came out wet and cracked. I'm fine. I need to... Sit down. Gentle but firm. He pulled a chair over from a nearby table and guided her into it. Dale, get her some water. The rest of you... He looked around the diner at the staring faces. Show's over. Give her some space." People looked away. Elena heard the clink of silverware, the awkward resumption of conversation. Dale Hendricks appeared with a glass of water, his face creased with sympathy. "Elena, honey, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If I'd known, it's okay." She took the water with shaking hands. "It's not. You didn't know. Nobody knew. That guy's a piece of work, coming in here like that. Who does he think he is?" The biker said nothing. He'd pulled up another chair and sat across from her, close enough to block her from most of the diner, far enough to give her space. He waited. Elena drank the water. It helped. A little. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry. I need to get back to work. Your breakfast?" "My breakfast is fine." The biker's pale eyes were steady. "Take a minute." "I can't take a minute. I can't afford to take a minute." She laughed, a broken sound. "That's the whole problem, actually. I can't afford anything." "That man. Your landlord?" "Yes." "How much do you owe him?" She should have told him it wasn't his business. She should have stood up and gotten back to work and pretended this whole humiliating scene hadn't happened, but something about him, the quietness, the patience, the way he'd stepped in without being asked, made her answer honestly. $3,100, plus whatever next month is. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Plus court costs, I guess, plus whatever else he can pile on. The biker nodded slowly, absorbing this. "And you have a daughter. How did you... You mentioned her. On the phone." Of course. He'd heard the whole thing. "She's 10, Elena said. "Her name is Mia. She doesn't know about any of this. She thinks we're fine. She thinks..." Her voice broke. "She thinks I have everything under control." That's what good mothers do. Let their kids think that. Something in the way he said it made her look at him more carefully. There was a weight behind the words, an old pain. "I don't know what I'm going to do," she heard herself say. "I've been trying to find a second job, but childcare costs money, and her school is... She needs someone to pick her up, to be there when she gets home. And I can't." She pressed her hands to her face. I'm so tired of all of it." The biker was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket. Her heart seized ridiculously some movie-fueled fear of weapons, and pulled out a small business card. "My name is Marcus Cole," he said, "and I think I might be able to help." Elena looked at the card. Thick cardstock, cream-colored, simple black lettering, Cole Foundation, Housing Advocacy and Community Development. Below that, a phone number and a website. And at the bottom, in smaller text, Marcus Cole, founder. "I don't understand," she said. "Most people don't." Marcus almost smiled. "It's the jacket. Throws them off." "You're... what? A nonprofit?" "Something like that." He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking. "Started about 15 years ago. We buy distressed properties, fix them up, rent them to folks who need a hand. Below market rate. Sliding scale, based on income. We also do advocacy work, helping tenants who are dealing with landlords, like the gentleman who just left." Elena shook her head slowly, still not quite processing. "I don't... Why? Why would you do that?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, older. "Because someone should have done it for my mother." She waited. "I grew up poor," he said. "Not struggling poor, not making ends meet poor. Poor. Apartments with no heat in winter. Landlords who'd take the rent and never fix a thing. My mother worked 3 jobs when I was a kid. 3 jobs, and we still got evicted twice before I was 12. He looked at the window, at the gray October light. Second time, we ended up in a shelter for 6 months. My mother cried every night. Thought I couldn't hear. But I heard. I'm sorry. Long time ago now. She passed about 20 years back. But I remember what it felt like, being a kid and not understanding why we didn't have a home. Seeing my mother treated like she was less than human, because she couldn't make the numbers work." His eyes came back to hers. "I got lucky. Made some money in business. Construction, then real estate development. Made more than I ever thought possible. And I decided I was going to use it to make sure other kids didn't have to feel what I felt. So you help people. With housing. Among other things, but yeah, housing's the big one." He nodded toward the door where Drummond had disappeared. "And guys like that. I've dealt with a lot of guys like that. They think they're untouchable. They think because they own property, they own the people inside it." Elena thought of all the times Drummond had called, all the late-night knocks on her door, the way he'd look at her when he came to collect partial payments, his eyes crawling over her body like she owed him that too. "He's going to evict me," she said. "He's already filed." "Maybe, maybe not." Marcus pulled out his phone. "What's the address of the property?" she told him. He typed something, waited, scrolled. "Gerald Drummond," he said. "Drummond Properties, LLC. 14 rental units in the county, looks like. Any of them in good condition?" "I don't know about the others. Ours isn't great. The heater barely works, and there's mold in the bathroom that he said he'd fix last year, but never did, and—" She stopped. "Why?" "Because landlords like Gerald Drummond usually cut corners. It's how they maximize profit. They buy cheap, rent high, and let everything fall apart around the tenants." Marcus looked up from his phone. "I'm guessing he's never sent you an itemized accounting of the security deposit. I'm guessing he's raised your rent without proper notice. I'm guessing there are at least half a dozen housing code violations in that apartment that he's legally obligated to address before he can pursue eviction." Elena stared at him. "I didn't know any of that. Most people don't. That's what guys like him count on." He pocketed his phone. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have a conversation with Mr. Drummond. I'm going to explain to him that pursuing this eviction is going to cost him a lot more than he thinks, not just in legal fees, but in attention. My foundation has lawyers, good ones. We also have connections at the local housing authority, the health department, and a couple of journalists who love writing about predatory landlords. You can't, why would you? Because it's what I do." He said it simply, without drama. "And because I was sitting right there, and I heard what he said to you, the things he called you, the way he enjoyed making you cry in front of all these people." His jaw tightened. "That's not about money. That's about power, and I don't care for bullies." Elena didn't know what to say. She'd spent months fighting this battle alone, convinced that no one cared, that she was invisible, that her struggles were her own fault. Hadn't she chosen Ryan? Hadn't she chosen to stay home with Mia instead of building a career? Hadn't she made every wrong decision that led her here? And now, this stranger in a leather jacket was telling her that someone might actually help. "I don't have money to pay you," she said, "or your lawyers. I can't afford—" "You don't need to afford anything. The foundation doesn't charge the people we help. That's the whole point." He stood, reaching into his wallet and leaving a 20 on the table, far more than his untouched breakfast cost. "I'm going to make some calls, you're going to finish your shift, and then you're going to go home to your daughter, and you're going to tell her that everything's going to be okay." "I can't tell her that. I don't know if it's true." "It's true." He held her gaze. "I'm going to make sure it's true." He walked toward the door, then paused. "Elena." It was the first time he'd used her name. "That man said something about your husband leaving, and maybe he understood why. I want you to know, any man who'd leave you to deal with this alone isn't worth understanding, and any man who'd hold it against you isn't worth your tears." He left. Elena sat for a long moment in the sudden silence. Then Mary Chen, the day manager, emerged from the back with a look of mingled concern and exasperation. "Elena, what on earth is happening out here? Mrs. Patterson said there was a confrontation." "It's handled," Elena said. She was surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "It's handled, Mary, I promise." She picked up the 20 Marcus had left, tucked it into her apron, and went back to work. That night, after Mia was asleep, Elena sat on the edge of her bed and looked at the business card. She'd looked at it 6 times already, on her break, in her car, while making dinner, while pretending to watch TV with Mia, and each time it felt less real. She pulled out her phone and typed in the website. The Cole Foundation was real, very real. Pages and pages of information about their housing programs, their advocacy work, their legal aid services, testimonials from people they'd helped, news articles, a professional, polished, legitimate operation, and Marcus Cole. She found him on the About page, a professional headshot that looked nothing like the man in the diner. Here he was, clean-shaven, hair shorter, wearing a suit. The bio was brief. Founder and director, former real estate developer, board positions at various community organizations, a brief mention of his mother. A quote, "Everyone deserves a safe place to call home, no exceptions." Elena set her phone down. She pressed her hands against her eyes. For the first time in months, she let herself hope. Gerald Drummond was in his office 2 days later when his assistant buzzed him. "There's a man here to see you, Mr. Drummond." "A Marcus Cole?" "He says it's about one of your properties." Drummond frowned. The name wasn't familiar. "Send him in." The man who entered wasn't what he expected. Leather jacket, work boots, the look of a retired construction worker, or, God, a biker. What was this? Some kind of intimidation attempt? Had that woman from the diner actually sent someone to threaten him? Mr. Cole. Drummond stayed seated, making a point of his disinterest. I don't think I know you. You don't. The man took a seat without being offered one. But you're going to. Is this about the Vance woman? Because if she thinks sending Muscle is going to... She didn't send me. Marcus Cole's voice was calm, unbothered. I came on my own, after I saw the way you treated her. The way I... She owes me 3 months of rent. I have every right to collect what's mine. You went to her workplace. You humiliated her in front of her customers. You called her a deadbeat and implied she deserved to be abandoned by her husband. Drummond's face reddened. I was... frustrated. She's been dodging my calls for... Mr. Drummond. Marcus leaned forward. Let me explain something to you. I run an organization called the Cole Foundation. We provide legal aid to tenants who are being mistreated by landlords, and I've spent the last 48 hours having my people look into your operation. Something cold moved through Drummond's chest. You can't just... I can. And I did. Marcus pulled a folder from inside his jacket. When had that been there? And set it on the desk. Unit 4 at Maple Street has black mold in 2 rooms. You've been notified 3 times by the tenant and haven't addressed it. Unit 7 at the same address has a broken furnace that you've ignored for 2 winters. The building at Crane Avenue failed its last inspection, which you apparently convinced someone to bury. And the unit where Elena Vance lives? The bathroom ceiling is sagging from water damage that's been there for over a year. Those are minor issues. Those are housing code violations, some of them serious. And under state law, a landlord who fails to maintain habitable conditions forfeits the right to collect rent until the issues are addressed. Marcus's eyes were very steady, which means Elena Vance doesn't owe you a cent. In fact, you owe her for every month she's paid rent on an apartment you've allowed to become unlivable. Drummond stood up abruptly, his chair rolling back and hitting the wall. You can't do this. I have lawyers. So do I. Better ones. Marcus didn't stand. He didn't raise his voice. He simply sat there, immovable, while Drummond sputtered. But here's the thing. I don't want to drag this through court. It would take months, cost you a fortune, and here's the part that really matters, generate a lot of attention. The kind of attention that newspapers like. The kind of attention that makes your other tenants start asking questions. The kind of attention that makes the housing authority look more carefully at all 14 of your properties. Drummond's mouth opened and closed. What do you want? Simple. You're going to drop the eviction proceedings against Elena Vance. You're going to forgive the back rent she owes, all of it. You're going to fix every code violation in her unit within 30 days. And you're going to leave her alone from now on. No calls, no visits, no contact whatsoever. That's extortion. That's justice. Marcus stood now, finally, and even though they were the same height, he seemed to fill the room. You've been extracting money from vulnerable people for years while letting their homes rot around them. You've been using their desperation as leverage, threatening them, humiliating them. That ends today. Drummond's face had gone from red to pale. And if I refuse, then my foundation files complaints with the Housing Authority, the Health Department, and the State Attorney General's office. We contact every tenant in every one of your properties and inform them of their rights. We give everything we've found to a journalist I know at the Tribune who's been looking for exactly this kind of story. Marcus smiled, but there was nothing friendly in it. And we file a civil suit against you on Ms. Vance's behalf that will cost you more in legal fees than you've made from all your properties combined. Silence. You're bluffing, Drummond said finally, but his voice had lost its bluster. I don't bluff, Mr. Drummond. Marcus headed for the door. You have until Friday to drop the eviction and send Ms. Vance a letter confirming the debt has been forgiven. If I don't hear from her by Saturday morning, I make good on everything I just said. He paused with his hand on the doorknob. One more thing. I'll be watching you from now on. I'll be watching how you treat every tenant in every property you own. If I hear that you've harassed, threatened, or mistreated any of them, I'll come back, and I won't be as polite. He opened the door. Have a good afternoon. Elena got the letter on Friday. She stood at the mailbox in the gray afternoon light, Mia inside doing homework, and she read it 3 times before she believed it. Dear Ms. Vance, after reviewing your account and the current condition of your rental unit, I have decided to forgive all outstanding balances. You owe nothing in back rent or late fees. Maintenance will be at your unit next week to address all necessary repairs. This matter is now closed. Sincerely, Gerald Drummond. Elena's hands were shaking. She read it again, a 4th time. She walked back inside. Mia looked up from the kitchen table, her pencil pausing over her math worksheet. "Mom, are you okay?" Elena looked at her daughter, 10 years old, with Ryan's dark hair and Elena's stubborn chin, worried eyes that saw more than she let on, the small person Elena had spent every ounce of her strength trying to protect. "Yeah, baby," Elena said. Her voice was thick. "I'm okay. I'm really, really okay." She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around Mia, holding tight, breathing in the strawberry shampoo and kid sweat smell of her. Mia hugged back, confused but willing. "Mom, you're squishing me." "I know. Just give me a minute." "Are you crying?" "Maybe a little." "Why?" Elena thought about it. "Because sometimes good things happen," she said finally, "even when you've stopped expecting them." The diner looked the same. Same cracked vinyl booths, same checkered floor, same ancient jukebox in the corner that hadn't worked since the Bush administration. But Elena saw it differently now as she pushed through the door on a Saturday morning in April, Mia's hand in hers. "Why are we here?" Mia asked. "I thought you had the day off." "I do. We're meeting someone." The biker was already there. Same booth in the corner, same leather jacket, same quiet eyes. But he smiled when he saw them. A real smile. Warm and unguarded, and Elena felt something loosen in her chest that she hadn't realized was still tight. "Ms. Vance," he stood as they approached, "and this must be Mia." Mia looked up at him with the unfiltered assessment only children can manage. "You're the motorcycle guy Mom keeps talking about." "Mia! What? You do?" Marcus laughed, a deep sound that transformed his face. "I am the motorcycle guy, though these days I mostly drive a truck. Bad back." They slid into the booth, Mia on Elena's side, Marcus across from them. Mary Chen came over personally to take their order. She'd heard the whole story by now, along with everyone else in town. "Pancakes for everyone," Marcus said. "My treat." "You don't have to," Elena started. "I know, but I want to." He looked at her across the table. "How's the new place?" The new place, a 2-bedroom apartment in a building the Cole Foundation had purchased and renovated 3 years ago. Bright, clean, affordable rent, based on income. A small yard and back where Mia had started a garden. "It's perfect," Elena said. "The ceiling doesn't leak. The heat works. Mrs. Rodriguez next door watches Mia after school when I'm working. It's..." She stopped, swallowed. "It's perfect." "Good. That's good." "Mom's going back to school," Mia announced. "She's going to be a paralegal." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Is that so?" Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. "The foundation has a program, tuition assistance for tenants who want to continue their education. I've been thinking about it for a while, and with everything that happened, I realized..." She took a breath. "I want to help people like me, people who don't know their rights, who don't know they have options." Marcus's smile deepened. "That sounds like a very good idea. It was yours, actually, or your organization's. The paralegal program, when I read about it on the website, it felt like a sign. Sometimes the universe puts things in your path. Sometimes people do." Elena corrected quietly. "People like you." Mia was looking back and forth between them with growing interest. "Mom says you saved us." "Mia, what? She does." Marcus considered the girl seriously. "Your mom saved you," he said. "She worked hard. She didn't give up. She kept fighting even when it felt impossible. He paused, searching for the right words. "I helped even the odds a little." Mia nodded, seeming to accept this. "What happened to the mean landlord guy?" Elena winced. "Baby, we don't need to..." "It's okay." Marcus leaned back. "The mean landlord guy had to sell most of his buildings. Turns out when people started looking closely at how he ran things, there were a lot of problems. He's not allowed to be a landlord anymore." "Good," Mia said firmly. "He made Mom cry." "He did, and that wasn't okay." Marcus looked at Elena. "But your mom handled it with grace, and now she's building something new, something better." The pancakes came. Mia dug in, with the enthusiasm of the perpetually hungry young, and Elena watched her daughter for a moment. The healthy color in her cheeks, the easy way she laughed, the absence of the worry that had clouded her face for so many months. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said to Marcus. "Anything. Why do you still wear the jacket? The motorcycle look. She gestured vaguely. "You could wear suits. You could look like the person on your website." Marcus was quiet for a moment, pushing a piece of pancake around his plate. "Because the jacket reminds me who I am," he said finally. "When I was 17, I joined a motorcycle club. Not a gang, not quite, but not exactly Boy Scouts either. They took me in when I had nothing. Taught me how to fix engines, how to work with my hands. Eventually, I used those skills to start a construction business, and the rest," he shrugged, "the rest is history. But the jacket reminds me where I came from. It reminds me that most of the people I was running with back then ended up dead or in prison, and that I got lucky. And that lucky doesn't mean I earned it more than they did." Elena thought about that, about luck and grace and the thin margins that separated one life from another. "And it helps with the work," Marcus added. "When I walk into a situation looking like this, people underestimate me. Landlords think I'm some thug they can dismiss. It gives me an advantage." Seems to have worked on Drummond. Drummond didn't know what hit him. A flash of satisfaction in his eyes. But mostly, I don't know. I've been wearing leather jackets and riding motorcycles since I was a kid. It's who I am. The foundation, the charity work, that's who I am too. I just don't see why I have to choose. Mia had finished her pancakes and was now working through Elena's abandoned half. "Mr. Marcus?" "Just Marcus is fine." "Marcus, do you have kids?" Elena saw something flicker across his face. Pain quickly buried. "I don't," he said. "I was married once, a long time ago. We wanted kids, but it didn't work out that way." "Oh," Mia considered this. "You're good at talking to kids, though. Did you practice?" Marcus laughed again, that surprised, genuine sound. "I don't think I've practiced, no. Maybe you're just easy to talk to." Mia nodded sagely. "Mom says I could talk the ears off a donkey." "Mia, I don't think I've ever said that in my life. Grandma says it. Same thing." Elena caught Marcus's eye, and they shared a moment of adult solidarity, the kind that exists between people who are trying very hard not to laugh at something a child has said. After breakfast, Marcus walked them out to the parking lot. The spring sun was warm, the sky that particular blue that only happened after a long gray winter, and Elena thought about how different everything felt compared to 6 months ago. The fear that had been her constant companion was gone. Not every problem was solved. There were still bills, still struggles, still days when nothing went right, but the ground beneath her feet was solid now. She could build from here. "I wanted to tell you something," she said as they reached her car. "The Foundation's quarterly newsletter mentioned you're expanding the legal aid program, hiring more advocates." "We are. Demand keeps growing. There are a lot of landlords out there like Drummond." "I know." She hesitated. "When I finish my certification, the paralegal program, I'd like to apply." Marcus studied her. "You want to work for the Foundation?" "I want to help people the way you helped me. I want to be in that meeting, explaining their rights, telling them they're not alone." She felt herself flushing, but pushed forward. "I know I don't have experience. I know I'm just a waitress who got lucky. But I was also a tenant who thought she had no options. I know what that feels like. I know how to talk to people in that position because I was one of them." "You're not just anything," Marcus said. "And that experience you're talking about, it's not nothing. It's everything. It's why you'll be good at this work." He reached out and shook her hand, formal and warm at the same time. "Finish your certification, then call me. I'll make sure you get an interview." "Really? Really?" Mia tugged at Elena's sleeve. "Mom, can we get ice cream?" "It's 10 in the morning." So? "So no." "Unfair." Marcus laughed. "I'll see you both soon." "Elena," he paused. "Thank you for letting me help. Not everyone does, you know. A lot of people have too much pride. I think I ran out of pride somewhere around month 2 of Drummond's phone calls." She meant it as a joke, but it came out sincere. "That's not true. You had enough pride to keep fighting. Enough pride to protect your daughter from knowing how bad things were. Enough pride to hold your head up in that diner, even when he was trying to tear you down." Marcus opened her car door for her. "Pride isn't about never accepting help. Pride is about knowing your own worth, even when someone's trying to convince you otherwise. You never lost that." Elena didn't trust herself to speak. She got in the car, helped Mia with her seatbelt, and rolled down the window. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for—" She stopped, tried again. "I used to think people like you didn't exist. People who just helped without wanting something back. People like me exist because of people like my mother, because of what she went through, because of what you went through. Pain creates compassion if you let it. Some people get hurt and become the ones doing the hurting, but some people get hurt and spend the rest of their lives making sure others don't have to feel what they felt." He shrugged. "I decided a long time ago which kind of person I wanted to be." He stepped back from the car. Mia waved enthusiastically through the back window as Elena pulled out of the lot. In the rearview mirror, Elena watched him walk. Back toward the diner, A man in a leather jacket, gray-haired, scarred, patient. A man who sat in the corner booth of a roadside diner and listened. A man who decided to act when he didn't have to, who used his power to help instead of hurt, who chose compassion when cruelty would have been easier. She thought about the ripples of that choice, about the apartment she lived in now, the school Mia could focus on without worry, the degree she was working toward, about the job she would have one day, the people she would help, the ripples of those choices extending outward. "Mom?" Mia's voice from the back seat. "Yeah, baby. Is Marcus going to be our friend now?" Elena smiled. "I think he already is." "Good." Mia was quiet for a moment. "He has kind eyes, even though he looks tough." "Yeah," Elena said. "He does." That night, after Mia was asleep, Elena sat at the small desk in her bedroom and opened her laptop. Her coursework was there, readings on tenant rights, case studies, legal terminology. She had an exam next week, but before she started, she pulled up the Cole Foundation website. She found the Get Help page with its phone number and simple instructions. If you're facing eviction or dealing with an unsafe living situation, call us. We can help. Somewhere out there, someone was reading those words right now. Someone who felt as desperate and hopeless as she had felt 6 months ago. Someone who thought they were alone, that no one cared, that they were invisible. They weren't. Elena thought about Marcus in that booth, watching, listening, choosing to intervene. She thought about what it meant to be the kind of person who paid attention, who stepped in, who refused to look away. She closed the website and opened her coursework. She had a lot to learn. 1 year later, the Cole Foundation opened a new office in downtown Martindale. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was small. Marcus wasn't much for publicity, but the local paper sent a photographer, and the mayor made a brief speech about community partnerships. Elena was there, in her first professional suit, a small pin on her lapel that said Housing Advocate. She'd passed her certification exam 3 months ago. She'd been hired 2 months ago. She'd already helped 7 families avoid eviction and negotiated settlements with 5 different landlords. Mia was there too, holding a cupcake from the refreshment table, chatting with Mrs. Rodriguez from next door. She was 11 now, nearly 12, growing so fast Elena could barely keep up. But some things hadn't changed. She still talked constantly, still saw more than she let on, still had that stubborn chin. After the ceremony, Marcus found Elena by the window. "Not bad," he said, looking around the office. "Better than that diner booth." The diner booth had character. The diner booth had questionable sanitation standards. He smiled. "How are you settling in?" "Good. Busy. There are so many people who need help." "There always are. That's why we need people like you." Elena watched the crowd. Volunteers, tenants, donors, staff, people who cared about the same things she cared about, who had chosen to spend their time making things a little less hard for someone else. "I've been thinking about that day," she said, "the day Drummond came into the diner. What would have happened if you hadn't been there? You would have figured something out. Maybe, maybe not." She turned to face him. "But you were there. That's the point. You were there, and you paid attention, and you did something, and it changed everything." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "My mother used to say that we're all just walking each other home. That's all any of us can do. Walk together, share the load when it gets too heavy, and try to make the path a little easier for the people coming behind us." Elena thought about that, about the path behind her, the fear, the struggle, the nights when she didn't know how she would get through, and about the path ahead, still uncertain, still full of challenges, but visible now, walkable. "I like that," she said. "I thought you might." Across the room, Mia was laughing at something, cupcake frosting on her cheek. Elena watched her daughter, this bright, fierce person who was growing up in a better place than she'd been a year ago, and she felt something vast and quiet settle in her chest. Gratitude, hope, the fierce, simple determination to keep going. "Thank you," she said to Marcus. She'd said it before, many times, but it still felt inadequate. "Thank you," he said back, "for doing this work, for choosing this path, for being the kind of person who takes what happened to her and turns it into something that helps others." He nodded toward Mia. "Your daughter is going to grow up watching you fight for people. That's a powerful thing." "I hope so. I know so." The afternoon light came through the new windows, catching dust motes in the air. Outside, the town went about its business, people hurrying to jobs, to homes, to the 1,000 small dramas of ordinary life. Some of them were struggling, some of them were scared, some of them were about to lose everything. But now there was a place they could go, Now there was a phone number they could call. Now there was someone who would listen. Elena took a deep breath and went back to work. The end